Again, is the core message. Recognize your Lord, your Creator, and worship Him alone. In another verse, again about the people of Ad, we are told that Hud said to them, worship Allah, you do not have any God besides Him. Alright, so worship only Allah. What does it mean to worship Allah? Right, we know this, of course, but sometimes we need to be reminded. Sometimes we go through our routines, we pray every day, but it's become just a routine, a ritual. Maybe our heart is not there. We are not thinking about the things we should. What is worship? Where does worship come from? From gratitude, from love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can we not love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Creator? And if we love Him, how can we not be grateful to Him? And that is what obedience to Allah is all about. If we really love Allah, we should want to please Him and to do the things which will bring us closer to Him. And there is the analogy one of the famous scholars, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, mentioned, that as we are going through this life, we are like a bird. Right? The bird has to have a heart, otherwise it's dead, it cannot go anywhere. And it also has to have two wings. Not only must it have two wings, but the two wings must be balanced. They must be the same size. If one wing is bigger than the other, the bird is not going to be able to fly effectively. So how does that apply to us, right? If you are the bird, the heart of the bird is love for Allah. Love for Allah is what gets you through the spiritual journey. And the two wings, he said, are hope and fear. So this analogy is really summing up what Iman, what belief in Allah and worship of Allah is. Love for Allah and then the balance of hope and fear. Right? If you are too hopeful, you might become careless, you might become arrogant. You might think I can do whatever I want, I will just ask for forgiveness after I've done it. And Allah will forgive me. Right? That is one extreme and that is dangerous. The other extreme is also dangerous. If you don't have any hope and you have too much fear of Allah, of course Allah is great, Allah is powerful, we should have some fear of Him, but if you have too much fear, then this also is dangerous. You might lose hope, you might become despondent. We are human beings who make mistakes sometimes. Maybe you have made a mistake, you have committed some sin, you might think, this is too much, Allah cannot forgive me, there is no hope, I am doomed. That is the other extreme and that also is not right. So, Iman, the correct faith, is the balance between hope and fear, and of course this love must be there as the guiding spirit. So this is the core message which all of the prophets brought. What did they differ about? They differed, of course, some of them, not all of them, in the system of law they brought, the Sharia they brought. Alright, some of the do's and don'ts, what is allowed, what is not allowed to do, to eat, to drink, and so on. So again, these verses are reminding us about this, that Hud alayhi salam preached the same core message. Have taqwa of Allah and obey me. وَمَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. I do not ask of you any reward. My reward is only with Allah, the Lord of the worlds. My reward is only with the Lord of the worlds. And again, this is the case with all of the prophets of Allah. None of them asked for any worldly reward. They were not in it for worldly gain, to become rich, to become powerful. And if we look at their lives, we see this. فاتقوا الله وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين. أتبنون بكل ريع آية تعبثون. Now after this core message, he turns to some specific advice, because all of the nations to whom the individual prophets came, they had the same basic needs, of course, as human beings, but they also had specific circumstances. Maybe some specific sins that they were committing. So now he turns to address this. أَتَبْنُونَ بِكُلِّ رِيعٍ آيَةً تَعْبَثُونَ. Do you build upon every elevated place a sign, right, a monument maybe, a tall building? تَعْبَثُونَ just in vain, without purpose, without any reason. وَتَتَّخِذُونَ مَصَانِعَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَخْلُدُونَ. And do you take these structures? Right, there are two main interpretations of masani' among the Mufassirin, Imam al-Tabari and others. One is they said masani' could be buildings, maybe the same buildings which were mentioned in the previous verse, the tall buildings they are building on the high places. Another interpretation is reservoirs, that they were building reservoirs to collect water. Alright, so what's going on here? Are these things necessarily bad? Are they necessarily wrong? Is it haram to build tall buildings, to build reservoirs? Is it? No. In itself, it is mubah. It is permissible. Maybe there is no reward, but there is no punishment either. It is something neutral. But then depending on the intention and the attitude that you do it with, now it can go one way or the other. It can become a sin or it can become a good deed. And there is a clue in the verse. تَعْبَثُونَ. Alright? Without purpose. Alright? Just in vain. Without any reason. So this is why they were doing it. If you are building a building for a useful purpose, right, which will be beneficial to people, right, whether it is a masjid or maybe a factory that produces something useful or whatever it is, then if you are doing it with the right intention, alright, to be of benefit and to please Allah, because He has put these things here to be used in the right way, then this becomes a form of ibadah. It becomes a good deed, for which inshallah you can expect to be rewarded by Allah. But on the other hand, of course Arab did not do that. So their building fell on the other side of the balance of deeds. They did it without any reason, right? Maybe even wasting money, right? Building tall buildings just to show off the amount of money they have, to show the power they have, the ability they have. Again, there are different interpretations we find in the classical books of tafsir. Some suggested that maybe they were building these tall buildings and then going up there and harassing the passers-by. Right? Maybe some kind of checkpoint. Anyone who passes by there is subjected to harassment. Some other views among the Mufassirin, they said that maybe they were some kind of tax houses for unjust taxes. They were levying unjust taxes on the people from these tall buildings. And how about the reservoirs? How could building reservoirs be bad? Again, it could be good to help people if there is a drought, there is water available to them, or if a traveler is traveling through the desert, he is thirsty, he comes to the reservoir, he can drink from it. So it could be a good deed. But again, they were not doing it for the right reasons, with the right attitude, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in mind. And so it was something for which they were subject to criticism, for which their Prophet criticized them. وَتَتَّخِذُونَ مَصَانِعَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَخْلُدُونَ. Do you take these structures, whether the buildings or the reservoirs or both or something else, even maybe, do you take these structures in order to be immortal, in order to live forever? Alright, do you seek to live forever in this world? Do you behave as if you are never going to die? وَإِذَا بَطَشْتُمْ بَطَشْتُمْ جَبَّارِينَ. And when you seize, do you seize as tyrants? So again, from other verses in the Quran, we find that Ad had been blessed, among other things, with great strength and power. وَزَادَكُمْ فِي الْخَلْقِ بَسْطًا. Right, that Allah had given them, most of the Mufassirin took this as bodily strength. They were bigger than the average human being. And other Mufassirin took it in a different sense, that they had been made strong and powerful in other ways, such that they were able to rule over many other people. But what did they do? They misused their power. They abused their power. When you seize, do you seize as tyrants? Of course, injustice is something that is very strongly criticized in the Quran and in the teachings of all of the prophets. And injustice, of course, is an ongoing, a recurrent theme which comes over and over again in history. We see it very clearly in history.